Well, hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to this special edition of Big Blue Avenue. By the way, Hank, welcome back to the show. It's been since mid-January since we've done one of these. And first off, welcome, and we'll explain to the folks why we're here in just a moment. But how's it going?
It's pretty good. It feels great to be back. Missed talking some football, and gosh, I'm really looking forward to more of this off-season stuff. I'm like, every now and then when I have a chance, I'm on my phone. I'm hitting the refresh button on Twitter. There's a lot going on. It's crazy stuff, man. But I'm excited. How are you feeling today, Tom?
You know, I'm doing excellent. There is a lot going on tonight, and my Wi-Fi was giving me an issue just a moment ago. That's why there's a little delay there, but we should be all squared away now. So share this podcast with your friends, family. Make sure to follow us on our new Big Blue Avenue social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter, for all things New York football Giants related. And this Andy Hopper guy, we can never get rid of him. More like David White as Mayo, if you ask me.
Andy, you're in rare form as always, my friend.
You know, let me tell you something about David Mayo. They called him the Mayo Man in Giants land world. And, he was definitely an interesting player. We're going to talk about him. We are going to talk about Golden Tate being released as well. And Andy says, Hank, your beard looks terrific. So I second that. Looking good.
I need to shave and I need to chop off my lettuce eventually, but figured I'd grow it out while I can. Why not?
So, folks, let's get the show on the road. Tom Scavetti here with Hank and Dictor. So what we're going to talk about is the Giants releasing wide receiver Golden Tate and linebacker David Mayo. So these two cuts were not a surprise, in my opinion. Golden Tate, especially, Hank, was kind of interested to see how they were the first two to go. I wasn't sure if Mayo would go this soon, but with free agency starting in pretty much 2 weeks from today, I believe it starts March 16th, that Monday, the Giants are making some moves early, freeing up some cap space. And this move of Golden Tate frees up a little over $6 million. Now, if the Giants waited till after June 1st, they would have saved $10 million, but you can't plan 4 months ahead when your future 4 weeks ahead and less than that is uncertain. So I think this was a good move. Get him off the team now and save that money. Although, all due respect to Golden Tate, loved him as a New York Giant. We'll miss him for sure.
Yeah, he had a pretty solid career. Wasn't too long, but I think we pretty much saw him as like kind of a stopgap player, so to speak. Although, to be honest, I never really got the signing at first, like when they replaced him with Beckham. But hey, all things considered, he was solid. And, you bring up a good point. I think you said it was June 1st was when they would have waited. Financially, It made sense, but I think I would have to agree with you. I think the Giants are definitely better off doing it now because we all knew, I knew, every Giant fan in their right mind knew that he was not going to be back in the long term and that he was pretty much going to be a goner once the season ended. And there were moments, too, where he pretty much showed some bad points, cough, cough, the Tampa Bay game leading up to Washington.
Yes, that was definitely an interesting moment, and Golden Tate did get disciplined for that by Joe Judge. I believe he missed the next week, if I'm not mistaken. So, it's definitely very interesting to look at. Golden Tate was signed to a 4-year deal in the 2019 offseason. Now, every free agent Dave Gettleman and the Giants acquired in that 2019 offseason is now gone. That includes Golden Tate, Antoine Bethea, Marcus Golden, Mike Remmers, and Olsen Pierre. So all 5 of those guys are now extinct on this team. So Andy asked the question, who do they go after to replace Golden Tate? Well, Andy, I know we're going to have more content on this in the coming weeks, but I will tell you this. I don't think the replacement for Golden Tate is coming in free agency. I don't think it's more of a replacement for Golden Tate. I think it's a number 1 wide receiver that you need. And Golden Tate was brought here to be the number 1 wide receiver for the Giants, and he wasn't. Remember, he missed the first 4 games of 2019 with the performance-enhancing drug. So he missed that. It was a very unfortunate situation for him. So we didn't have him for the first chunk of that season. And Hank, he only played 12 games for us this year as well. So Golden Tate was in and out of the lineup. As far as who they go after, Andy, to replace Golden Tate, I think the replacement's coming in the draft. I don't think it's coming in free agency.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it's going to be. I don't know if they're going to get Kenny. I think Golladay was the name I mentioned on their last show, was probably the best signing, but even then, I'm not 100% sure. I agree with you on that. I feel like all signs point to either Waddle or Smith, or maybe not even necessarily a wide receiver. Maybe like for best target, obviously Kyle Pitts. I know he's a tight end, but still, I think reading in between the lines, I think we pretty much can tell the Giants are going to are getting their number one target for Daniel Jones in the draft.
Oh, absolutely.
And also, if you remember what Dave Gettleman said, he said he wanted to get him a playmaker too.
Yes, a playmaker is definitely very important for this offense, guys. I think it's going to be very interesting to examine as we move forward in the offseason. Sam Cardona. Hey, Sam, what's up? The girl who talks sports. Make sure to go check her out on all platforms. I know she had an episode that just released on Monday, so make sure to go check her out at the Girl Who Talks Sports on YouTube, Twitter, and the same thing with Andy. You can go check him out at the Brew Party on all social media platforms. Hi, guys. Tate was good, but by the end of the season, he's catching like one a game. I'm stoked for someone new to take his spot. Yeah, I think, Hank, we kind of discussed this hand in hand. A lot of it was Jason Garrett this year in the play calling. The Giants didn't take many shots deep down the field, but Golden Tate is one of the best wide receivers in football when it comes to yards after the catch. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's top 2 to 3 in that category. That wasn't there as much this year. So I think him not being able to live up to his normal self and the incompetent play calling on the offense this year, in addition to a young, inexperienced line and receivers unable to create separation, I mean, I personally think Golden Tate underperformed. And catching like one a game, you're right. They didn't target him enough. He didn't get open enough. It's a combination of several different aspects for Golden, for sure.
Yeah, the offense as a whole, when you look at it, wasn't that great. I think there were moments where it looked okay, but for the most part, yeah. And Jason Garrett, I think we can all agree, did not have the best play calling. I think later on in the season was when I kind of realized that Jason Garrett wasn't enough of a risk taker, as in like throwing the ball down the field, which I would have liked to see more. But again, I also know it was a combination of a lot of things, like you said, the offensive line, and hopefully with this offseason it can improve.
So let's just quickly go over Golden Tate's numbers. This year, he had 35 catches for just under 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, granted, he only played 12 games, starting 4. He did receive discipline from Joe Judge during the season. And over 2 years, Hank and folks, Golden Tate's stats are this. He caught 84 of his 137 targets. Not great. So he reeled in about $22 million. He left behind over $44 million in dead cap. Not good. Tate is 32 years old. I believe that might have been a typo. It might have been 4.7. So, yeah, this was a terrible signing at the time by the Giants. All due respect to Golden Tate. But yeah, I think the problem is that he was an older player. We were rushing to replace Odell Beckham. Giants got desperate, and I think the Giants, they were trying to bring in veterans with a historically young football team.
Yeah, the Tate signing really never made sense to me for that reason, because when they traded Odell Beckham, the first thing you assumed was, oh, the Giants are rebuilding. Like, they're getting rid of like one of their big star players who you paid a lot of money to, and you figure, okay, well, we'll find someone younger to replace him. 48 hours later, Golden Tate. What? For 4 years?
Yeah, I know.
No, I was never really too crazy about this move, so I never really had any certain feelings. So it's just, he's gone. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like it's whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
although I did like him, honorary Notre Dame player, so I like my Notre Dame guys. I'll be honest
I don't
about
have
that.
a special connection like you do.
I have a little emotional connection to Golden, but anyway, Andy Hopper, I've got great hands and a solid 40. Andy would love to see that. Sam, also that PED thing really made me mad. It was so dumb. Yeah, it was, and he didn't know what he was doing was wrong either at the time. You know, he came out and apologized for it, but you have to be disciplined at that point. He got disciplined once in each of his 2 seasons with the Giants. I understand he's a veteran, he's a good guy, but that's not the guy you want to keep around either. Danny Sneakers can't throw and catch. Well, yeah, you know what? Danny Sneakers was part of the problem as well. Second-year guy. Look, I might be in the minority when I say this, but I'm not going to come around and say he was worse in year 2. He was actually better. You look past the decline in touchdown passes, his numbers were better. You know, a big part of it was the lack of having a good, wealthy receiving core, the offensive line, losing Saquon Barkley in week 2. But overall, Jones got better in year 2. He did. The numbers on paper won't tell you that. But if you look at the way he progressed in the second half of the season, he cut the turnovers.
Yeah.
He was 4-2 after the Tampa game as a starter. Pretty rough schedule, too, not to mention. And I want to get to your mother's comment. We're back. What a nice surprise.
Why not?
Jamie, we actually planned this about 2 hours ago. We saw that Tate and Mayo were both released back to back. So we were kind of just like, whoa, you know, we got to do a live stream. We're planning on doing one next Wednesday as well with Sam. So make sure you want to catch that. I believe that's going to be around 8 p.m. next Wednesday. But yeah, we wanted to surprise people, do a live stream tonight. So
why not? It was a good, Andrew, shout out to you as I say this. The news was a good break room bomb.
Yeah. But releasing Golden Tate was an excellent move for sure. I definitely do like that. So Giants fans miss OBJ? No.
You're not speaking for either of us, Andy. You're not speaking for either of us.
Look, the bottom line is you have to move on. You have to get a number 1 wide receiver without the baggage that Odell brought with him, right? That's the big problem with this football team. And Darius Slayton emerged into a nice number 1 target for us at times this year, but he wasn't consistent enough. You know, I mean, look, he was a great talent, but I don't miss that attitude. He was more negative than positive for us, and which is never a good thing. You know, we've gone over the whole Odell debate several times, and look, he's a mess in Cleveland now. He wants to get traded again. So I'm pretty sure the Giants did win that trade. I think we got the better of the deal there. I know. I mean, Jabril Peppers was an excellent acquisition. Dexter Lawrence, O'Shane Zimenez, 2 good defensive contributors, especially Dexter this year, Hank. Part of the reason why the Giants were able to be among the league leaders in run defense.
Yeah, and also to add to that, would Cleveland really done anything had he stayed healthy? I'm not 100% convinced.
I mean, I thought Cleveland got better after Odell got hurt. I hate to say that. That's nothing against, you know, you want Odell to be in the best health, but they got better. I miss his talent. I don't miss his divanness. Yeah, Sam, you know, I agree. I mean, I think about 80% of Giant fans would agree.
Yeah.
With that. Jason Edmondson. People may disagree with this, but with Barkley coming back next season, it won't be a bad idea to draft more protection first round. We could go for wide receiver round 2 due to injury. Many forget how dominant Saquon is behind a good O-line. Yeah, you know, that's a good point. I think, you know, we'll get more. Here's my thing. I'm kind of old school. I don't like to talk about the draft until free agency is over, until that initial wave of free agents are signed. Now, I know the Giants are very conservative when it comes to free agency. They like to wait. They like to wait it out, which I think is the smarter move, because then what happens then is you get guys come to you for lesser money than what they're worth. So you sign guys for less than what they're worth. It makes a lot of sense. Perfect example is Logan Ryan, right? You sign him to a 1-year deal, and then we got that Christmas Day special extension for 3 years, and now he's there. So you're not overpaying for anybody. And I think really good teams, you look at model of consistencies in the league, teams like the Packers, the Patriots, and the Steelers over the past 10 to 20 years, they've all done the same thing. They've built through the draft, and then they've filled a hole or two here and there in free agency. You never see them going out signing huge names often, right?
Yeah.
And I think for a team that's 19th in cap space, Jason, I think you're right. I think wide receiver should be addressed in one of the first 2 rounds of the draft. I think it depends on if any of those top 3 fall to us. I think Devontae Smith is most likely to fall to us out of those 3. If he's there, I would love to take him. I'd also like a Kyle Pitts. But as far as protection goes in the first round, I've been hearing reports that Penei Sewell is going to go early, top 5. I can see that for sure. I think he should go top 5. I think Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern is a guy to keep your eye on at number 11 if all the receiving options are gone. So let's say the top 3 receivers are gone, then I'd say you might want to debate taking Rashawn Slater. So, all right. And Paul, let's go Chiefs. Nick, how about them Cowboys? All right. Thank you very much for watching, Paul and Nick. There's some Cowboy fans out there that are talking about Dak and whatnot. But let's move on. Let's talk about David Mayo again. Mayo was great for us in 2019. Hank, he was a pleasant surprise. He played under Dave Gettleman in Carolina, where he was mainly a core special teamer, and then he came over to the Giants, and Ryan Connolly got hurt, Alec Ogletree got hurt, and Mayo was second on the team with 82 tackles and 2 sacks in 2019, had 13 starts. So he was very impressive in 2019, but then 2020 was a different story.
Yeah, he had bad luck. I think he missed the first half of the season with the injuries, and we could have really used him in some of those games too. And I think, not to mention the meniscus, he really wasn't the same either.
No, he really wasn't. After he tore his meniscus, what did he miss? The first 5 or 6 games? He came back.
Yeah, I think he missed. I think he either came back for the Cowboy game or it was the week after. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, he didn't come back.
No, he missed the Cowboy game. You're right.
I believe it might have been the Washington game. But yeah,
right.
That's pretty much when he came back. And
you're right. He didn't play the Cowboy game.
He missed the first 5 games. That's what happened. He only played in 11 games, had 29 tackles, and 1 forced fumble. Was not the same player after his torn meniscus. You're right. More of a rotational guy, and he lost time to undrafted.
Yep.
Mr. Irrelevant, Tate Crowder, who a lot of people had going undrafted, but the Giants took a chance on him with the last pick of the draft. I would say look for the Giants to add depth at inside linebacker in free agency. If they don't, you may see one get drafted again in a mid to late round. I mean, you never know. Micah Parsons could be available at number 11 out of Penn State. You might want to take a look on him. But, Hank, overall thoughts on the Mayo man? I mean, I'm going to miss him. I mean, he really was good. He was a good, solid player. Nothing to go crazy about, but he got his job. He did his job, and he did it well.
This one hurt me slightly more than the Golden Tate injury because Mayo was a guy who was definitely very productive in 2019. I liked what he did, and I thought losing him was a pretty big loss early in the season. I'm not going to lie, and it really stunk because we never really got to see him do as much afterwards. But and unfortunately in the NFL, there's a salary cap, which is what I like to consider the necessary evil. And I all things considered, I can't really say I disagree with this move.
Right. I mean, he saved us $2.3 million in cap space. So now the Giants saved $8.5 million with those 2 corresponding moves. So I think that's a good start to free agency. We were slightly over the cap limit. Now we're under, which is good. I think it's going to be interesting to monitor as we get closer. Another thing, too, about David Mayo that a lot of people may not know is that he also was the reason why the Giants essentially cut Ryan Connolly. Now, I get it. Yeah. The injury definitely hurt him, but Mayo filled his spot. Connolly was supposed to be the number 2 starter. It was a competition between him and Mayo. Mayo won that competition. Connolly didn't win that competition. He was going to be, a rotational guy, but then, you don't want to cut any of the rookies you just drafted either. So he was the odd man out, unfortunately. Sometimes injuries suck. I think it was more of a crappy timing thing with Ryan Connolly. But George Bristol with a comment, this whole team needs an overhaul besides running back. I don't think I agree with that too much, but I see where he's coming from. I know how George is about these Giants. George, you are right in a respect. The Giants need some new faces on this roster if they're going to make the playoffs. I do think that we need to upgrade our offensive line. We need to upgrade our receiving corps. I think Ingram is a bum. And defensively, I think we're set, though. I think we're set. You add a good depth piece and a cornerback number 2, this defense is set. I don't necessarily think we have to go out and acquire an edge rusher. It would be nice if we did, but that's not a priority. We could win. Without that, in my opinion. Although the best Giants teams that made it that deep and those teams that won championships had elite edge rushers. So I see where he's coming from there. Donald Hill. I'm late. Golden Tate was a bum, plus he wasn't a Jason Garrett fit. Yeah, he wasn't a Jason Garrett fit. You're right. I mean, look, you can think about this in 2 ways, right? The Giants brought in Golden Tate because they needed number 1 wide receiver. Remember, this move was made before the Giants drafted Darius Slayton, so they had to pair somebody with Sterling Shepard. Now, I think his numbers were much better under Pat Shurmur than Jason Garrett. So I definitely do agree with that. I mean, look, I love Golden Tate. He's a Notre Dame guy. I mean, he's a good player. He just wasn't a fit. Just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
Salary cap is a myth. Well, yeah, I mean, you can think about it and say, yeah, teams are always going to find a way to make space. But at the same time, you do have to manage it well.
It's part of the game.
Running back stays hurt. I don't know what he's referring to there. Releasing Mayo was smart. I think we can find some pretty good fillers for him. Plus, we need to keep Blake Martinez. Well, yeah, Blake's staying. He's one of the 10 to 15 guys on the roster that are 100% coming back next year for sure. O-line, receivers, tight ends, another linebacker, Blake can't tackle. Yeah, no, George is right. You bring up a good point. I'm not 100% sold on Tate Crowder as interior linebacker number 2 either. What do you think, Hank?
The third position you just typed in, we obviously know that to be very true.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, in all seriousness, yeah, I agree. We definitely need another linebacker. I feel like that's been a problem for the Giants for, many years, not just this year.
Absolutely. George, hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate you tuning into the live stream. Yeah, folks, remember, share this podcast with your friends, family. We're going to be on for as long as you guys want. We'll take any questions that you have. Obviously, the main focus tonight is the release of wide receiver Golden Tate and David Mayo. So we just talked about those 2, Hank. Is there anything you wanted to add on those 2 in particular?
Yeah, not really. I think those were guys we knew were going to be gone. I don't know if we necessarily thought they were going to be the first to go, but I think both of these are pretty inevitable.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Maybe not this soon.
So let's talk about some other cut candidates. So if, you know what, I'll pull up the salary cap here just to give everybody a little visual. So there are several guys, and of course, we kind of talked about Nate Solder. Nate Solder is a guy who, he's scheduled to make $10 million in 2021, but he also cost $16.5 million against the salary. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I think he's highly likely to get cut. But here I'm going to pull up the salary cap table now and see. Try to figure this out. All right, I got something up here. Hopefully this works. Going to share my screen, and we'll get this underway, folks. All right, there we go. So Um, I mean, looking at it here, obviously the one that comes to mind is Kevin Zeitler. That, in my opinion, is a guy that here we'll look at contracts actually. Yeah, so Kevin Zeitler is a guy that, in my opinion, he's going to have to probably have his contract restructured. I hope the Giants keep him. I know the Entertainer was talking about him tonight. It's going to be very interesting to see how they monitor this over the coming days because if we release Kevin Zeitler, we save $12.5 million, and then it's a $2.5 million hit against the cap. So then freeing up $10 million with the release of Zeitler, but I don't want to do that because Hank, especially if the Giants go ahead and decide that they want to release Nate Solder, Zeitler is really the only veteran left on that line.
Yeah, that's a really tough situation. I think your best bet would be to see if you can find a way to keep Zeitler. He might have been one of the better offensive linemen on the team too. So I don't really see any problem with having him. Yeah. But you're right, the cap. As I said before, there's a reason why I like to think of the salary cap as necessary evil. Like, it really puts you at a tough spot. You know, you either keep him or cut Solder. I think personally it's going to be Solder. As much as it would have been interesting to like keep him next year, I just after a year off, I don't know what it's going to be like. And that contract really turned out to be a disaster. So I think he's going to be the one that goes.
So players that are likely to go, in my opinion, Nate Solder, Cody Core is one too. We would save $2 million with him, as you can see here. $2 million cap hit. We release him. There's no penalty. Another guy, Spencer Pulley, we could save 2.325. Riley Dixon 2.75. Look, I think Riley Dixon should stay. I mean, he's an excellent punter in this league. I like him. I don't want him to go.
Well, you're his biggest fan. I'm not surprised you'd say that, but I agree.
He's my favorite player on the Giants.
I don't disagree with your point. I just had to point that out.
Yeah, but Cody Core is likely. Spencer Pulley is likely. Levine Toilolo, almost $3 million. That's the other guy I wanted to walk through. Be very minimal cap hit with him too. So those are just a few of the guys. I think Toilolo, Core, Pulley. I don't think Riley Dixon's getting cut. I hope Zeitler doesn't get cut, but I think he should get restructured. I think what we should do is extend him and even out that money because what's going to happen is next year the Giants have a boatload of cap space. These two releases tonight are pretty much putting us close to $100 million for next year. So we're in pretty good shape because we managed our money well. What we did in 2020 was we nailed the draft for the most part. For the most part, we nailed the draft. Free agency, we did really well. Bradbury, Martinez, Ryan, right?
Yeah.
I may be missing one other key guy in
all
there.
Three had a big impact, yeah.
Yep, and Fackrell too. Fackrell's another guy, which we'll talk about him next week when we have Sam. But yeah, I mean, those are just some other cut candidates that I think John Suggs in the comments section here. Giants need a wide receiver or edge rusher.
Yeah,
they need both. They need both. I'm not impressed with the edge rushers at the top of this year's draft. I think the Giants, if they were to get an edge rusher, I think they are probably either going to re-sign Kyler Fackrell if the price is right. No pun intended. And then they can go a little higher for a guy like Justin Houston, a 32-year-old edge rusher who had 8 sacks last year for the Colts. And then, obviously, Kyle Van Noy got released earlier this week by the Miami Dolphins after signing a 4-year deal last year. So it's going to be mayhem this year in the NFL due to the pandemic. I mean, we thought the salary would be about 30 to 40 million more. Now it's 15 to 20 million less. So, Hank, that's not the ideal cap situation. And I think the Giants' edge rushers might be on their own roster. I really do, because let's put this into perspective. Let's say Fackrell doesn't come back, right? You have Carter, Zimenez, Coughlin, Cam Brown, and then you could potentially re-sign Jabal Sheard. I wouldn't be against that. That wouldn't be my first, second, or third choice, but it's an option.
Yeah, could live with that. Yeah, I can definitely see that. These are all guys who had big plays last year too. So Zimenez we really missed during the second half, so I agree with that.
Wayne Gallman.
And,
well, yeah, I don't know about Wayne Gallman. I think he's going to be an interesting candidate because he just finished his rookie deal. If it's the right price, he'll come back, but I think the Giants may look to add a player like a Marlon Mack or a James White. Goldman's different from Barkley. He's an excellent complementary back to Barkley. I want him back because Goldman is a good north and south runner in between the tackles. Barkley is more of an outside zone runner, as where Goldman is more inside zone. So I think he'd be good to keep.
Yes. Jared Cooper.
What do I think about this? John, the Giants will likely not address the tight end position in free agency. I don't think they need to. I think Caden Smith is a fully capable tight end too for Evan Ingram. If they cut Toilolo, then I think they're probably going to go after lower tier guys like Seth DeValve or Luke Stocker. Potentially, there's one other player that I'm thinking of that I can't think of him off the top of my head, but think those guys if the Giants were to bring in a tight end.
The only tight end, and I think you know where I'm going with this, Tom, that I would legitimately want the Giants to get, if possible, is Kyle Pitts. That guy's amazing. You know I'm a big Kyle Pitts guy.
Yeah.
Do I think it's going to happen? Not 100% sure. But if Kyle Pitts somehow was there and the Giants took him, I would be cool with that.
I agree. I would love Kyle Pitts as well. We will see what the Giants decide to do. George Bristol, it's a perfect storm, really. We shouldn't even be in this predicament. I know I sound negative, but imagine this. We didn't reach for Danny Dimes. If Odell wasn't a jerk, if Barkley was healthy, and you're right, Barkley was not really healthy last year either.
Yeah, that's.
If Ingram was half as good as advertised.
Yeah, and Barkley being healthy, it's why I kind of lean towards Bad Dog's opinion. You remember Bad Dog being on her show? We talked about how he would say he would listen if the Giants were offered a trade for Saquon Barkley. I totally get where he's coming from. Now, granted, I'm not saying I would totally trade him, but I get it's why I totally get it. The guy couldn't stay healthy.
I would certainly listen.
Yeah.
I more than likely wouldn't take it, but I would definitely listen. Would I make a counteroffer? Now that's for another day.
Probably not. But I'm basically bringing back a point that we had from one of our guests from weeks back.
Yeah.
No, more like months back, I should say. Gosh, how has the season been over already?
It's been a while since the season ended, and free agency is around the corner, starting a couple of weeks away. We talked about the release of Golden Tate and David Mayo tonight, folks. If you're just tuning in now, Hank, is there anything you wanted to add? I think we've covered it all.
Yeah, no, I think I'm expecting probably a weapon in the draft. Like I said, probably Waddle, Smith. Although my other third choice, my other wild card, as I mentioned, is Pitts. That guy.
Yeah.
I really could see him being one of those extra weapons that could really put Daniel Jones over the edge. But we'll see. I've got my fingers crossed this offseason. Let's put it this way. We know Gettleman in the past has been very hit or miss. Don't get me wrong, he did a great job last year. I'm giving him credit where credit is due. But we also know there's a reason I'm still nervous, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to see how they do the draft, and I really, really hope they can nail it with the drafts this year too.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Folks, we're going to be on for the next 3 to 4 minutes, taking any last questions you have about this topic below on our banner about Golden Tate and David Mayo. And Hank, I just wanted to thank you for joining me here tonight. It's been a lot of fun. You know, we haven't done one of these in a while. I think we definitely have to do one again next week with Sam. That should be a lot of fun. Kind of
for sure.
Putting a full outlook on the entire free agency, and we'll be a lot closer, and there may be some more cuts by the time we do that. And you never know. We may surprise you folks again with another episode like this before next week. And we do have a comment. It's from John. Does Jason Garrett return? If they do not improve and he returns, I see him gone at end of the season. Well, I'm an advocate for Jason Garrett. Now, I'm also on the same level as most Giant fans, saying that he was not great this year. He was not great. He was not a good offensive coordinator for us. He struggled at times, and part of that was, I know you had the shortened off season. The entire staff was nearly new. At least some of these other teams, their staffs have been together for a while. Now, that's not me trying to make an excuse for Jason Garrett, but the reality of the situation is Daniel Jones, if Garrett didn't return, he would now be dealing with 4 different offensive coordinators in the previous 4 years. That's not how a quarterback grows and develops, learning 4 new offenses in 4 years. You don't want that. And this is going back to his Duke days, folks.
Yeah.
Garrett needs to return. Now, look, if it's a swing and miss again next year, it's going to have to be Garrett or Jones. I mean, look, Jones is entering year 3. He has to perform. He has to take that leap. He has to take that Josh Allen leap. That's what we'd like to see, or anything close to that. I think Jason Garrett is definitely going to be here to stay for 2021. And if he performs well, he should also be here to stay in years to come, potentially 2022. And we will see what happens with that. And anything you want to add on Jason Garrett?
Yeah, no, I don't think, again, I think over the course of the season, I was less and less in love with his play calling. But, I think with that being said, it's really hard to rationalize letting him go despite his shortcomings calling plays. Even though we did see during the Cleveland game that Freddie Kitchens did do a better job play calling, I still think you got to bring him back because I don't think you want Daniel Jones having to go learn a whole new thing in year 3. And I would have to say next year really is make or break. So why not?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. We have another comment. More Hank and Tom. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jamie. I appreciate that.
Thanks,
I appreciate that. Yeah, this should be a lot of fun. So, Hank, anything else before we sign off? I think we've covered it all.
No, I'm very happy we got to do this again. I'm looking forward to doing this more and more as the offseason comes along. Tom, as always, thanks for having me. A lot of fun talking Giants football with you. And yeah, it's been a blast.
Go Giants, baby.